So today we're going to talk a little bit about business continuity and disaster recovery and what it takes to create a successful, profitable practice around backup and disaster recovery. This is a two-part series. The first part is now. The second part is going to be available streaming online in the coming days or weeks for everyone who attends this session. You'll be invited to see the second iteration. It's kind of like a one-on-one, 101, 201. Today's more about creating your portfolio, choosing your solutions, and then tomorrow, or the 201 session is more about getting ready for it and launching your actual practice. So first of all, let's start off with the business continuity versus disaster recovery. For the resellers in the room, what's the difference between those two things? What's the difference between business continuity and disaster recovery? Business continuity is the cost of running your business? Okay. Anyway, you need to be operational, keeping it operational. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay, so more of an industry would be kind of building on that would be disaster recovery is, listen, something really bad happened. How do I recover my information? How do I get that information back? Business continuity is, how do I keep my business operating in the event of a disaster? So, there's a fire in my server room. How do I get my data backed up? Who cares where it's going to go, how it's going to get there, when I'm going to get it back? Can I get it back? How long will it take to recover from that disaster? Business continuity is like, okay, fire in my server room. How quickly am I back online? How quickly can I operate? How quickly can I serve my customers? Very, very big difference between those two things. And the solutions that you implement to solve those two business problems are very different. And one of the things that I love about the portfolio of vendors that we have here today, some are better on disaster recovery and some are better on business continuity. So it just depends on what's the right solution for your customer. So first of all, why is it so important? I started this business in 2003 as an MSP, and back then the telephone was still, I think, the most important thing in the customer prem. If the telephone was down, it was the end of the world. I found that out by getting into the phone business, and that's when I quickly learned that downtime had a whole new meaning when it came to phone. But within a couple of years, that had switched completely over to email being the most important form of business communication. Now it's more chat, text, email, combination. It's all electronic forms of communication. So there's an expectation of internet uptime that's even greater, I think, than what the telephone uptime was expected to be back in the day. So it's a very big transformational shift. And with the movement to cloud, obviously things become more critical. You tend to be more resilient overall, but maybe each location tends to be more vulnerable, perhaps because you're depending on external communications for access to information. Businesses are increasingly moving things to the cloud, moving information where it's best suited to be, which I think is great for our industry long term. If it's cheaper and better for something to be in Azure, by all means, let's put it in Azure. If it's better to put it on the PC of the user, great, let's put it there. If it belongs in Office 365, let's put it there. So everything is going where it needs to go, and mobile and agility is becoming more and more important, and that's changing backup and disaster recovery because it fundamentally changes what's going to be backed up and where it needs to be backed up, what's the best place for it. It was customer prem gets backed up to the cloud. That was the default. Well, how do you back up Azure? How do you back up Office 365? You still have to have a backup. You can't lose sight of the fact that you still have to have a backup disaster recovery plan for your customers. But you have to, as our role as value-added resellers and managed service providers, is to come up with solutions to those business problems. Businesses, the stakes are high and they've never been higher. One thing that's really nice is all the media attention to the breaches and the loss of data and even the riots in Baltimore has brought to mind very concrete, easy to understand examples of disasters that can happen. It's not, oh, I'm in Baltimore, hurricanes aren't really a problem here. Okay, cool. Well, what about employee theft or rioters in your street? I mean, the reality is that it doesn't take long to convince a customer that downside risk is real when they could just turn on the TV and see concrete examples of that. And I remember back, and I'm from Florida, so my managed service provider was here in Atlanta and then throughout the state of Florida. It was easy for us to paint a picture of a hurricane, even though the chances of a data loss due to a hurricane are infinitesimally small to the point where you don't really need to worry about it. But the risk of employee theft, accidental deletions, hackers, things like that, very real possibilities, even likely. So the businesses are more knowledgeable about downside risks and understand the reality, which is that if they lose their data, they're not coming back, or they're going to have trouble coming back, especially if their business can't continue to operate. So all these BCDR vendors realize this, and they've come to market with solutions that are getting better and better and better at ensuring the customer doesn't go down. right? What used to be real, which is a real-time hot site with real-time failover, was prohibitively expensive for almost everybody. Well, enter people like StorageCraft into the business, all of a sudden, it's not that expensive to have a hot site actually in your office. It's actually not that crazy of a thought for most small businesses being able to afford that. And that's, of course, all thanks to Al Gore and the invention of the internet. So why do we want to be in it, right? For resellers that I know, including my firm, there are two reasons, right? One, it's the right thing to do. We got to protect our customers because they're too ignorant to protect themselves sometimes, right? We need to provide offsite backup, get them thinking about them, educate them on the downside risk so that they protect their business. Selfishly, there's also this opportunity to do two things. One is, if they go out of business, we lose a customer. And two, if they buy this backup solution, we make a lot of money. It's a $40 billion opportunity, and all of us are in prime positions to get that. Put it in realistic terms, my business had about probably 200 offsite backup monthly recurring revenue customers, maybe 250. Real, that's real dollars, it was real money, and it was very profitable. Our offsite backup business probably averaged 40% margins throughout its career, so it's a very profitable business, and we ingrained it in our managed service practice where we actually bundled it and gave it away to our customers, but we did it in a way that was profitable for us. So all of us have an opportunity and a need to get into the business, right? For it's the right thing to do. We want to secure ourselves and make money. How do you get into it? There's three ways to really get into the business. One is product resale. Okay, that's how many of us are more VAR oriented versus managed service provider? There's a couple of us, and then we got a handful of MSP type firms. Okay, so what's right for you depends on your business model and how you want to go to market. Okay. Product resale is kind of the evolution of the tape backup system, right? You're selling a piece of equipment or some sort of a solution that's more of a product oriented. You install it and then you leave. Managed services is something that I frankly didn't understand the potential of that business until this year, in fact, when I helped a more of a mid-market, mid-enterprise company, a MSP dedicated to the mid-market, develop a managed service solution for its customers that was like, I think it was about $25,000 a month recurring. And it was over 50 points of margin. So we actually built the proposal for him and helped him go secure that customer. That's a managed service. And then there's what most people would call managed service, which is that cloud backup opportunity. So let's deep dive into each of those. Product resale. The nice thing about this, and I'm sure the VARs, I never figured out how to sell hardware. So I'm not going to be the guy on stage that's going to be like, listen, sling boxes, we can make a killing together. I don't get that. I don't understand that business. I never could figure out how to make more money than it cost me to get the sale. I was into the recurring revenue. I learned that I could make a lot of money that way. But there is a benefit to the product-oriented deal, which is it's great for big customers, large data sets. The cloud solutions aren't applicable to a petabyte type solution. So you can go in quickly, spec the deal, recommend a technical solution, install it, and get the heck out of Dodge, right? There's a benefit to that. It's more of a transactional thing, get in, get out. It's very easy to sell to an IT department. And for the VARs in the room, that's second nature to them, right? That's what they've been doing since the business has been launched. So the challenge, of course, is that the margins are going down on a monthly basis for those type solutions. And there's no recurring revenue opportunity. So if you don't capture enough money to cover your cost basis plus profit, you're going to lose money over the long term. And then from a technical perspective, the solutions themselves aren't as reliable because they're very human dependent. Kind of like the old day, you had to take the tape out and put it off site. I can't tell you how many tapes were in safes next to the server. And when you explain to the customer that safes are fireproof but not heat proof and tapes melt in hot safes, it's sort of an eye-opening experience. I can't tell you how many times I said that. So this business, this product resale, it's definitely an opportunity. It still exists. It'll exist for a little bit of time anyway, but the opportunity, of course, is going down on a monthly basis. Managed services. This is where you get into a situation where you're implementing a technical solution, you're wrapping hardware, software, and services into a per monthly managed price. So where I saw this work famously well was in more of a mid-market solution where they didn't want a shared environment, they didn't want to have things go to some third-party cloud like a Carbonite or a StorageCraft or Data or Axient. They didn't want to have their data go to a third party. They wanted to own that data and keep it, but they wanted to replicate it to a third location. In their case, there were 2 offices, and they wanted to replicate it in like a daisy chain manner all throughout those environments. So we helped the vendor create a proposal that bundled all three of those into a monthly recurring fee. And it was very, very comfortable margin-wise. And the customer, as I understand it, bought it and is quite happy with it. So the nice thing about this, from our perspective, is it's sort of like a hybrid, right? It's a managed service, but it's traditional hardware software. The vendors can play a heavy hand in helping us sell and implement the solution because they have a large upfront revenue stream as associated with selling it. The downside is that we take on the risk for customer default. In this case, in this managed service, the customer can have their data go up and down, and you're charging on a per gigabyte or terabyte basis. But the reality is, it is a recurring fee that can go up and down. So in most cases, data continues to grow up on a monthly basis. So you're taking a little bit of risk, but it's mitigated. And then there's the opportunity that I think is the big one for everybody here. How many of us sell cloud backup solutions now? One? Okay, this is a huge opportunity. In my opinion, it's the easiest point to enter into the cloud. Every one of us, the fastest growing resellers in the world, the most profitable resellers in the world, the most valuable resellers in the world are all very pro-cloud, right? This is the easiest point of entry into the cloud, in my opinion. It's like a no-brainer. And the three vendors that are involved with this are all great solutions: StorageCraft, Microsoft, and Carbonite. All different pros and cons of each. They're actually not that much overlap between them. They're kind of unique solutions in that. But this is a great solution because you can come in and safely get 15 to 60 points of gross profit on a monthly basis, recurring for the life of the client. So think of it as like a retirement program. It's one of those things where you sell it once, you reap dividends forever. And some cases, you don't have to take care of the customer, right? They're responsible for it perhaps, and you just keep giving that recurring revenue stream. So huge opportunity here, big market, growing every month, easy to sell. Every customer in the world can afford Carbonite, for example. It's not that difficult. And the nice thing is that the solutions themselves are evolving so quickly that they're accommodating almost every business use case you can imagine now. The only scenario which cloud-based backup in this model doesn't work is maybe the extreme data sizes, like a 25 petabyte type environment. Carbonite's not going to quite handle that volume really well. At least I don't think, unless there's a Carbonite expert who can tell me I'm wrong. But the reality is it's going to be applicable to probably 99.9% of environments. And if you look at the different providers, and we'll talk about that later, you'll create a product portfolio that represents all the pieces of the market to make sure you have what you need to be successful. So how do you build your practice? The market is changing very quickly in our space right now. There are some vendors who still think that the secret to making you sell their product is to teach you how amazing it is. Right? Look how amazing my product is. Look at how cool it is. Look at the spec sheet. Look how many gigahertz and megahertz, and look how fast it works. Right? And then when it doesn't go with their way, they blame the reseller. Oh my gosh, I have 25 resellers. They're not performing. Right? And that is a common thing that I hear on a monthly basis. And the reality is there's a little bit of truth to that, but the problem is they're the ones not performing, right? As a partner, they're not doing their part. So there's a number of vendors that are actually evolving their business model to be real partners, two-way partners. I'll help you, you help me, together we'll get rich. That's what I call sort of Rev 2 of the channel, where the partners are actually starting to get engaged with each other's businesses, helping address the root cause issues. Because the root cause issues are almost always the same in our business, which is that most MSPs and VARs don't know how to market themselves and don't know how to sell very well, right? Does anybody disagree with that? It's like the biggest challenge in our space. So a lot of vendors are starting to get a hold of that, and they're saying, listen, and I don't know let me ask you a question, I guess. If there was a vendor that said, listen, two vendors, one that said, look how amazing my product is. And let's say it's roughly the same as another vendor who says, listen, I'm going to help you be successful. I'm going to teach you how to market. I'm going to teach you how to sell. I'm going to help you generate leads. And we're going to work together to grow your business. Which vendor would you go with? The second one, right? Everyone in this room would probably go with the second vendor. Vendors are getting that. They're getting on board. They're starting to realize that by investing in you, you're going to invest in them. By giving you something, you're going to give them something. And by helping you become rich, they become rich, right? And it's especially true in cloud because they are quickly realizing that it's not that you don't want to sell the solution, you just can't. Or most MSPs are not that great at selling hardware and software. The only environment where MSPs really crush it in hardware and software, by definition, are with managed services customers, right? Most MSPs can sell just about everything to a managed service customer. But going to a new customer with no relationship and trying to put in a backup disaster recovery solution, it's going to be an uphill climb. So by helping you become a very evolved, professional, and capable MSP at rolling on net new customers, they effectively create a pipeline for themselves. So that's Rev 2 of the channel, and you're seeing the vendors that want to be successful move to that model. So as a reseller, what you need to do is to really evaluate your partners objectively, okay? Too many partners for too long make decisions based on trade shows like this, where they go to the vendor and look at the spec sheet, meet the person, whoever's got the charming, good-looking salesperson is the vendor you're going to represent if they've got the best marketing slick, right? They're not thinking about the fact that they have challenges and weaknesses. They need help too, right? There's more to selling a product than a great product. Because no customer in the whole world, in the history of mankind, has said, man, I cannot wait to buy my next tape backup system. No one thinks about hardware and software. They want the result, the solution, the business benefit to that solution. So what good resellers can do is to go through and create an objective analysis of vendors. So I'm going to go through this in a little bit of detail. This is the sheet you have in front of you, actually. So I would encourage you to take a look at the vendors in the room and the others in the Solution Pavilion and go through and compare them. How do they compare at being a true partner, right? You'll notice that technology, the actual technical capabilities, is actually a very small part of why you would pick a vendor. A great reseller is evolved in how they pick their partners, just like they are evolved in how they implement the solutions. So what you want to evaluate is a few things, right? One, go-to-market framework. How do they go to market? Do they go to direct or do they channel, right? Do they go to all distributors, or you're the distributor you prefer to work with, or do they not? How do they go to market? There's some vendors who go direct and some vendors who go directly to the channel, and some vendors who try to walk that tightrope of doing both. It may not be relevant to you, but it may be important to you that they're purely channel focused, for example. What are the technology type and products? This is a key thing. This is where the engineers in your business get to have a vote. They come in and say, okay, I'm going to do a technical analysis. Which one is best for you? As a business owner, that's only 1/10 approximately of the reason you go with a vendor. Instead of 100% of the time, you're putting an equal weight, even a greater weight on the business aspects of representing a vendor versus the technical aspects. But technology is important. At the end of the day, it's got to work. And don't worry about which one works best, because if you can't sell it, it doesn't really matter, does it? Customer focus. And that criteria is what type of customer they go after. Not every solution is designed for every market. Most solutions have a sweet spot. Hey, listen, we're really SMB focused. This solution is designed for the 1 to 20 person office. Another solution might be really good for the 20 to 100. Another solution might be good for the 100 to 10,000. You have to look at your customer and find out which solutions match up, both with a industry and also a company size. Industry, where it's important there is around the legal aspects. Are they HIPAA compliant? Are they, Frank Dodd compliant? That type of thing. Channel distribution. Do they work with your distributor of choice? What's their reputation and track record? Has anybody heard of a offsite backup solution that maybe didn't work as well as it was advertised in our business? Yeah, which one was that? As long as it wasn't one of the three in this room, it's okay to talk about. She's going to bite her tongue. Okay, that's probably smart. All right. Well, the reality is, everyone has a reputation, both for being easy to use, easy to manage from a service perspective, or successful at actually performing what it's designed to do on a results basis. So everyone's got their reputation and their track record in the industry. For an example here might be a vendor who's got a reputation for going around their customers and selling direct and cutting the customers out of the equation. That might not be a partner who you'd want to have on your team. Technology complexity. The reality is some of the best solutions tend to be the most complex. As a reseller, sometimes that works in your favor, and sometimes it doesn't. There's complexity that yields better results, and there's complexity that's just complexity. The reality is, for a lot of us, simplicity is key because we're charging on a fixed monthly basis per device or per user. So simple to use, simple to implement, and simple to manage yields more profit. Attached sales opportunities. This is, I think, one of the ways that vendors can actually differentiate themselves in the competition. The reality is, if you look at all the spec sheets for all the vendors, most of them say the same thing, right? It's actually somewhat difficult from a marketing perspective to even tell the difference between all of them. You have to dig under the covers and look at everything to actually know what's different. But on the sales side, it's actually not. Asking questions like, as a partner, how many leads should I expect from you on a quarterly basis? As a partner, what are you going to do to help me generate leads? As a partner, what are you going to do to help train me on how to market and sell not just your solution, but my entire portfolio? What are you going to do to help me transform my business from being a VAR to being an MSP? That's what attached sales opportunities means. That is a point of differentiation for a lot of vendors out there. So really look to that and challenge them on that. A great vendor will have a great story there. Competitiveness is applicable, right? The reality is they can create an amazing partner program, they can create an amazing product and be priced out of your market. The reality is you got to be able to sell the product. So if it's a $10,000 a month solution and you're going to a florist with 2 PCs, there's a really slim chance you're going to get that deal. So you got to make sure that it's competitive with your market. Partner support is key on the service side and on the sales side. What are they going to do to help support you in the sales process? What are they going to do to support you on the service process? What are the startup costs to get involved? Some vendors have no threshold whatsoever to get involved. Those are difficult because they usually trash their reputations because people do a bad job of implementing their solutions. On the other end, you have vendors that will go nameless that have certification programs that cost you 25 grand and 10 weeks out of the office to actually get certified to install their products. There is a happy medium there where you get technically qualified to implement and sell solutions, but not so qualified that you can't afford to become qualified. And then, of course, you're going to look at the ROI. How much money do I expect to make in the solution? How successful will I be at selling it? At this level, it's a projection, but it's an important projection to make. You know, I'm going to invest $25,000 in this program through direct investment as well as downtime for my team. I expect to make 10 sales that are going to equate to $5,500 a month each, which means I'm expecting $5,000 a month in profit to my business by representing the solution. A $25,000 investment to get a $5,000 a month return is a very good return, right? So you want to do that. So anyway, at the end of the day, you're going to grade out each vendor. In this example, we have 5 vendors, but as you'll see, you'll probably end up picking 2 to 5 vendors for offsite backup for your BCDR practice. We'll talk about that in a minute. So in terms of evaluating technologies, who do they target? What's the size and capacity? What type of end user? And what are the breadth of products? From an architecture perspective, how will it work? How do you deploy it? How do you support it? This is a big deal right now, especially in the managed service provider side. Does it work through my RMM tools? Is billing done through my PSA tool? How efficient can it make my business? And if you're a lean and mean MSP, like a lot of MSPs are, those integrations are the difference between making money and losing money, right? It's just that simple. Product pricing, what's the cost and what's the real value that we can claim the customers get? And then don't forget to, when you're looking at expense, you want to look at the total cost of ownership for customers. You have to factor in the cost of downtime, the cost of internal resources, the cost of your time. So you want to make sure that you're representing solutions that have value to your customers that exceed the cost. And then what's the vendor roadmap? Where can they take you, right? Where are they going? Look at their roadmap. Talk to vendors. Where is this product going? And it's amazing because you can't buy into the marketing spin. Anything that vendors tell you is going to happen more than 3 to 6 months away, you could just kind of put that in your hopes and dreams chest, right? But things that are, hey, listen, it'll be coming out in the April release, May release, June release, you can usually count on that coming out relatively close to when they say. But it's very difficult in the software business to project R&D times. Things take longer than they usually should, and unfortunately, everything's more difficult than sometimes it needs to be. An example here might be new feature integration with PSA and RMM. It's a big deal for an MSP to have these. The vendors understand that, and every one of them is striving to get more and more integrated with the PSA and RMM tools. Any questions so far? No? All right. At that point, once you've selected your vendors, okay, so at the end of the day, you'll probably have a couple of vendors on the business continuity side, maybe some based on the lower end of your market, some based on the higher end of your market, some SMB, some enterprise, for example. And then on disaster recovery, again, you may have 2 different solutions. There are some vendors that can transcend size of company, but a lot of them, you can tell by looking at the product, it's really designed more for the SMB, the tiny business, or the S or the M, if you will. So you may have 2 business continuity solutions and 2 disaster recovery solutions. The more solutions you have, the more capable you are of meeting your customers' needs, but of course, the more operational resources you have to support them. At the end of the day, you've got to be able to deliver on your promises. How many of you guys have like a network operations center, a formal NOC? No? What do you guys, any managed service providers in the room? How do you do, what's your NOC look like?
Well, ours is hosted.
You host the NOC?
We use a product that's hosted at the provider,
LabTech?
and ConnectWise. It's actually a hosted solution.
They host your RMM tool and PSA tool? Do you have, who monitors your servers and everything that you have under me? Okay. Is monitoring servers a little more difficult than it sounds? Patch management, monitoring, that type of thing?
Yes. To start with, once you regulate it, but it's an ongoing process. It's been 2 years and you still keep it up.
I learned this lesson. It's a heck of a lot more difficult than it sounds like it should be. Patch management, to me, seems like such a trivial task. I mean, how difficult can it be? Right. So I had 49 people. My NOC had a lot of people, had 29 engineers. I outsourced my NOC to Kaseya IT services kits. Doing it right is very difficult and very time consuming and far more expensive than it looks. What I found is that outsourcing the NOC added agility to my business, but more importantly, it allowed me to be great at what it is I did. Kaseya had a minimum of 9 people on staff 24/7, 365. I got a lot of peace of mind out of that. But more importantly, they did it for $2 per PC and $8 per server. I couldn't even come close to competing with that. So when you're getting into this business, the one thing you want to do is to understand what the customers are actually looking for. And every customer in backup disaster recovery is only looking for one thing: peace of mind. How inexpensively can I get peace of mind, right? So to do that, one thing you have to say is we monitor 24/7, 365. This is a key component to how it is you enter any managed service and charge a premium for it, right? If you say, oh yeah, we're on staff from 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and after hours stuff we address the next business morning, you can charge here. But if you say 24/7, 365, you can charge here. Well, guess what? Not much happens in a backup between those hours that can't wait till the next night, right? So offering it and having a huge cost of doing it are not necessarily the same thing, especially if you outsource the NOC. I am not, however, a fan of outsourcing the help desk. I don't believe in outsourcing anything that ever touches your customer person, like talks to them or emails them. A NOC is computer-to-computer communications, patch management, antivirus, that type of thing, false alarm, initial triage and remediation of issues. That is something that I'm okay with. A computer talking to a computer is fine with me. But I never want anyone that's not a W-2 employee ever talking to my customers. At the end of the day, if you outsource your help desk, what do you have left? Like, what are you? You're not an IT service provider because you're only doing part of the IT services. You're really an outsourced sales department for someone else's IT department, right? So you have to amass your operational resources, and different backup and disaster recovery solutions require different solutions. The Network Operations Center. This is something where I really like, I believe in investing in this. The number one thing that we ever did to close a customer was give them a tour of our office. It's amazing what you can do for 10 grand. We literally had these huge monitors on the wall with a bunch of data that our techs really didn't use that much, but it looked impressive and it accurately depicted what it is we actually did for our customers visually. They could walk in and say, oh, okay, now I understand. They're actually monitoring servers. And you see the real-time alerts and everything coming across the board. They can physically see what it is you're doing. They don't need to know that the screen is actually kind of irrelevant and it's a lot of show. The systems are doing the monitoring and tickets are being created based on issues for resolution. The NOC tour is an extremely powerful way to close a customer on any managed service. Okay? So I highly recommend that. All show. It's a lot of show. But perception is reality, right? A crappy website means you're a crappy company. A great NOC means you're doing a great job. Perception is reality, and it's always been the case, and our industry, I think, could take a lesson there, right? You then have a management system, and the management system in this case is how it is you're going to manage all of these tools. A lot of us use RMM tools or PSA tools to manage billing and the technical troubleshooting, like the LabTech ConnectWise solution. I'm based out of Tampa, so Arnie and I have a fun relationship with each other. Pardon me?
I'm in Tampa.
You are Tampa? Okay, cool. That's cool. What's that?
I know
Yeah, Arnie's a character, but he creates an amazing tool, right? ConnectWise can do a lot to help you improve the profitability of your business, and so can LabTech. Through automation and more efficient service provision, you can make a lot more money. Well, the management system is a critical component of delivering on your solution, so you want to make sure you understand how it is you're going to manage those tools. The most effective way to destroy margin is by having a whole bunch of islands of information you have to log into and remember all these different system logins. If you can get to a single pane of glass and allow efficient management of your technologies, you're going to make more money. Now, if you don't have those technologies, then obviously it's not as much of a cost to you, but hopefully one day you'll evolve to getting those. And you then have the help desk and support desk. Cloud has changed the way service providers get staffed. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize is you can make a lot more money in cloud than you could in prem. You also create a much better quality of life for yourself as an owner and all of your engineers as you start selling these cloud-based managed services. And the reason is because a lot of that painful engineering, that after hours work, the disk defrags, the exchange recoveries are all done by someone else's engineers. So you have less margin, but you also have to have less of an engineer to support that work. Good example of that. Since Carbonite is one of the sponsors, managing Carbonite can be done by a 15-year-old. It's not that difficult, right? So the most profitable thing you can do is I'm exaggerating obviously for effect here, but is to have a junior level engineer supporting stuff that requires a junior level engineer. And that's not natural for VARs or MSPs. Most MSPs and VARs buy the highest talented technical resource they can find and staff their team full of level 2 and level 3 engineers. In the cloud, you have to flip that model on its head. You want to make sure you have the least cost person doing all of the work, right? For each thing you can do, you have to have the least cost. You want to flip that model on its head. It's supposed to be a pyramid where you have a much larger base of level 1s and a very small number of level 3s. Cloud and managed services technologies allow you to do that, but you have to force that in your system. In your processes internally is to have the lowest paid person doing the most work. But you have to provide good customer service too. And what I've learned is that it's a lot easier to find a great customer service level 1 than a great customer service level 3. It's almost like great engineering and great customer service don't really mesh well together, right? So it actually works really well in customer service if you have level 1s answer the phone. Even if they don't answer 100% of tickets, they answer them more courteously, more professionally, and frankly more quickly because you can afford 2 or 3 level 1s for each level 3 you have on staff. And then you have this self-healing network. LabTech is one of the, I think, biggest pioneers in this business, which is when this happens, do this. When the service stops, restart that service. It's a way to create what they call a self-healing network. It's a really important aspect of running a successful MSP. Basically, by doing exactly that, you save 15 to 30 minutes of an engineer's time, which is a cost savings of $10 or $20 during the day, and it's a couple of gray hairs if it happens in the middle of the night. So this is a kind of a rudimentary version of a NOC. I really, especially now as cheap as LED displays are and that type of thing, having a bunch of little tiny monitors is impressive to a customer, but in my experience, you're better off to have 3 monitors per technician in the NOC, and then a wall of big monitors that have more of a dashboard mentality, right? Brian Dozel at BrightGauge does an amazing job of creating dashboards for a NOC, and they integrate with all the PSA and RMM tools. So investing in a NOC is something that's very powerful for you on the sales side and can easily pay for itself many times over. And then don't forget training. This goes back to the adage of knowledge equals confidence equals sales. The more your salespeople understand what it is you're selling, the more they'll use it. The more your service people understand what it is they're selling, the more they'll recommend it. The combination of those things makes those two groups more confident in recommending solutions, which is what customers need to trust you. The more they trust you, the more they buy. So training is a critical portion to selling. Another thing that I've noticed is that if salespeople are not confident in the service team's ability to deliver, they actually won't sell it. And you've seen it over and over again in a lot of different aspects. So don't forget to come in and sell your solutions. And we'll talk a little bit about that in section 201, the next class, where we really talk about what that means. How do you manipulate perception to either match reality or maybe be greater than reality? How do you make people trust you? How do you make people want to buy from you? And how do you make people believe that your solution is the best solution for them? So you want to make sure you're doing your technical setup, your SLAs, and then your change management. How are you actually going to use these technologies? And then, of course, You have to test the solutions. This is something that customers will pay a premium for. Most MSPs don't realize this, but if you say, okay, Mr. Customer, we're going to do your backup, we're going to monitor and all that, and we'll charge you X dollars per month to manage that, you can actually charge more to say, okay, and then once a year, once a quarter, whatever, you can actually call us with a test. You pick the date, or you plan a date, whatever you'd like, and you can say, okay, you could delete a file, a folder, or an entire application, and we're going to restore it for you. A test. You can build that price into the structure. If you think about it, you've actually just built yourself an hourly engagement into your pricing model that actually keeps your team on its toes. The technical team, of course, would never want this, right? They don't want to be tested, but as a business owner, you do want that because you want to deliver on every promise you make, and that's one of the ways for you to get some accountability in your program to know that at any point, any of your customers can request 1 test a year, 4 tests a year, that type of thing. So you can develop a checklist, make sure you really walk through this, and it won't happen, it won't take many times for the service team to get this down. And it's a great exercise to go through, and it's something that you can charge for, so why not do it? One thing that you want to consider when you're picking your vendors is any of the industry regulations that your clients are susceptible to. This is the HIPAA, the SOX, the Dodd-Frank. You want to talk to their legal counsel, your legal counsel, or even CompTIA's legal counsel program to understand what regulations there are in your industry so you can bring up solutions that actually meet those requirements. At the end of the day, you want to build your plan together. You want to fail to plan is to plan to fail. You want to develop a system that you're going to use to run your business and sell. You want to staff it, and then you want to create what's called a sales playbook, which is a way of just institutionalizing the benefits that each solution provides your customers. At the end of the day, nothing happens until someone sells something, so you have to market your solution. And we'll go into a lot more depth in Class 201, but bottom line, what you want to say is that the number one way to make a salesperson fail is to not give them marketing, right? They go together. Marketing's job is to generate leads, and salespeople's job is to sell them. Any questions? No? Okay, well, good deal. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you guys hopefully in Class 201.